Joe,
What was the first book that you saw Wolverine in?
oh golly. Well, it was X-Men. I mean, when I first showed up at Marvel Comics, and back then they were the place to go. I mean, I was just a beginner, and I met with Jim Shooter, who was running the joint back then, and he showed me a copy of the X-Men. He said, "This is what we're after. This is a number one book." And I remember looking at John Byrne's artwork and just telling him, I said, "Mr. Shooter, I can't give you this. I can't even think like this guy. You know, look at all those little figures next to each other. You know, my characters tend to be kind of lonely. I like long shadows and stuff. You know, but of course I read some stuff with Wolverine in it, and knew about the character, but it was on a bus trip to San Diego with Chris Claremont, where we had a long trip, and he took it to convince me to draw Wolverine. So that was my introduction.
That's brilliant. And on this long trip, you guys are having this conversation, and there's this opportunity to build Wolverine into even more of this character that we love, particularly with this influence of Japanese culture. Was that more Chris's influence or yours?
Okay, I'll just show you just how lofty these conversations tend to be, just how sophisticated, obscure the references are. Biggest thing on TV that year was the adaptation of James Clavell's novel Shogun, and it was like the first big mini-series on TV, and both Chris and I loved it to death. And Chris was, and I'm sure is, the kind of writer who likes to be in tune with the artist he works with, and likes to get the artist fired up about a given subject. And he saw that I was really jazzed about this samurai stuff. I hadn't yet done Ronin, but it was burning inside of me, you know. And so we started talking about Wolverine in Japan, and the story kind of started growing from that.
It's a beautiful love story amongst all of the different action pieces, action set pieces, all the folks that will.
By the way, and the love interest is named Mariko, which coincidentally is the love interest in Shogun.
Art influences life, which influences art. Like, that's the way it's supposed to be.
You know, there's an old saying. It says that good artists imitate, great artists steal.
Yes. Yes.
And it was like, come on, we were shameless.
But it's literally one of the greatest stories of all time, let alone Wolverine stories of all time. And considering that the internet wasn't a thing back then, at what point did you guys know that you had crafted something so pivotal for one of the most famous comic characters of all time?
You never know.
Wow. Wow.
No, I mean, to be honest, you never know how something's going to go over, how it's going to be regarded, what long-term influences it's going to have. Sometimes you do something that you think is going to be it. It's going to be the Pyramid of Giza. It's going to be it's going to be the Eiffel Tower. And it's something that should have been flushed down the toilet in the eyes of the audience. You just never really know.
Right.
So it's my advice to people is never plan for first off, never think in those terms. Just come up with the best idea you have, pursue it as relentlessly as you can, respect your audience, admire the one great God of creating fiction, which is clarity. Make sure it's understandable all the way through. And just be true. Just don't lie to yourself and don't lie to your audience.
I love it. Make some noise for them.